Assalamu alaikum. Today we will be discussing Al-Baqee from the youth's perspective. We have here Zahra Waheed and Kumail Razvi. Thank you for coming with us today. To start off, can you please introduce yourselves?
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Zahra Waheed. I am a freshman in high school and I am hoping to study medicine in the near future.
Assalamu alaikum, I'm Kumail Razvi and I'm studying mass communications.
Thank you. So to start off with, how would you explain Al-Baqee to someone who has never heard of it?
I'll basically summarize it. To summarize it up, it's basically a holy grave site that was destroyed by the Saudi government on April 21st, 1926.
I agree, and I would also add that it's where our Prophet's progeny and members are buried.
So, who are some of the personalities that are buried there, and what makes this site so holy?
So we know Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam, and al-Banin, along with the uncle of the Prophet Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, and the aunts of the Prophet and his wives, along with his son Ibrahim. And we also have some other ashab who are buried there, and martyrs as well.
So, when did you first hear of Al-Baqee, and what was your initial reaction upon hearing that it was destroyed?
Well, I first heard of it through my dad. He basically told me how the Saudi regime, they destroyed it and all, and my initial reaction was surprise because I was thinking to myself how cold-hearted these people must be to destroy a person's gravesite, because they're not even alive. It's like you want to completely erase them out of life, not be remembered.
I was around 7 years old, and I definitely was disappointed, but I was also mostly very confused as to why people would do such a thing, and because many of the people there are amazing people, and they're also part of the Ahlul Bayt.
So, Jannatul Baqee has been demolished more than once. Why do you think the Saudi government feels so threatened by it?
Because this is the Wahhabi ideology, since they believe that it's haram to have graves, along with the fact that the truth is always very scary, and the truth of the Ahlul Bayt is the real truth of Islam, and that this truth of theirs will unveil all of their lies and false theories.
The shrines and all, they represent the Ahlul Bayt's sacrifices and beliefs and basically all their accomplishments, and having that there will remind people of all of that, and that's what they find as a threat. Mm-hmm. So in order to get rid of that threat, they try to destroy anything and everything that is associated with the Ahlul Bayt, in hopes for people to forget about it, but we all know that's never going to happen.
Right. Baqee is not the only heritage site that has been destroyed by Saudis. So each year we protest in large numbers, which you guys may attend, but it has not brought forward the international condemnation that we are looking for. And why do you think that is?
I believe world leaders and other countries should discuss this, because it's not just an Islamic heritage site, it's also a site of humanity for other people's cultures, heritage, and the Saudi regime, they just want to keep destroying it over and over again, because like I said, they find it as a threat that people know about it, and I believe we should first try to get rid of the Saudi Wahhabi ideology, because as long as the ideology exists, they're just going to keep on destroying grave sites over and over, because it doesn't matter if we rebuild Baqee, as long as the Wahhabi ideology exists, they're going to keep destroying it over and over and over again. So unless that Wahhabi ideology is destroyed completely, then we can rebuild Baqee and other future grave sites, inshallah.
I believe it's because people are afraid of speaking up against these crimes for their own safety, and considering that this is a religious and political issue, it doesn't mix well together, especially not when Saudi holds so much power. And if someone wants to help us, then that's amazing, that's great. But if they don't, then we must take matters in our own hands and fight for our own rights with peace and without violence.
I agree. And so connecting to this, you agreed that like it is the duty of other international like politicians to step in.
Yes, especially the countries that share the same beliefs as we do. We need any country and place to help us because the personalities that are buried here are the real Islam, not the Islam that the media shows.
Yeah, it's the responsibility for every country to discuss this because it's, like I said, it's not just a site for Islamic heritage, it's also a site for humanity of other people's heritage.
Right, I agree. So this brings us to the next part of what can we do to bring awareness to this issue, and whether it be through social media or advocacy.
I attend the yearly Baqee protests every year, and I also post about it on my social media page to let my non-Muslim friends know.
I haven't really done anything, but my family has always been doing things that they can to participate in these activities and these protests to help with Baqee.
So what advice would you guys give to other youth who are trying to get involved in the issue?
It isn't easy fighting against oppression, so we're gonna need all the help we can get. So if you want to join, it's gonna be great. And even the smallest act of posting on social media can help, because that way you are not only spreading the word to a few people, but these few people can also be spreading the word to others. And it is our religious duty to stand beside the Ahlul Bayt, and we should always just try to keep in contact with the Rebuild Baqee Organization.
Yeah, I urge the youth to try and spread the message out on whatever platform they can, whether it be through social media or whatever, and also tell them to visit the Baqee site to, try to gain knowledge about it, about the history of it, and have a better understanding, and also try to spread the message through their non-Muslim friends so they can try spreading the message out.
Right, and beyond the youth, what can we do as a community to, first of all, like you guys were saying, bring awareness, and then, in addition to that, rebuild al-Baqee?
Basically, I think we should just spread awareness through whatever capacity we could, whether it be through Maulanas, Munkabat Khans, Noha Khans, just try to spread the message out and let our voices be heard.
I agree with what Kumail said, and I would say to talk more about it in our majalis, publish books that are using reliable sources, and have conferences with having our youth getting involved with them as well.
I completely agree with the tips that you guys mentioned. So how about in school? Has this ever come up, this topic, in your history classes? And if not, what can we do to ensure that we start teaching in public schools about this?
I've never heard about the talk of Baqee in any of my classes, but I believe that we must have some sort of lesson or unit on it, especially in world history classes where religion is an important part. They should have it, and we can begin by incorporating it in our own Islamic schools. Then we can go out to the public schools by starting clubs and having petitions for the units to talk about Baqee and its history.
So yeah, it hasn't been taught at my school or my college, but if I were at the school board meeting, I'd basically tell them that, you guys teach world history, right? So why not add Baqee as part of the syllabus to teach in classrooms? And I'll let them know, like, it's paying respect to dead people has never had anything to do with religion. You just have to be a normal human being with the heart and to pay respects. And I'll also give them an example too. Like, imagine if a U.S. memorial site, let's say 9/11 memorial site, if that were to be destroyed, the school board will urge other schools to discuss this with their students, teach it to them, urge them to fight for it, and try to rebuild it. So if they will do that, why not try to discuss this?
I would also like to add on to what he said, and especially for us Americans and our European brothers and sisters, it is very easy for us to inform people about this topic since we have the freedom of speech.
That's true. We do have the opportunity to speak out about it in America without having negative impacts. So let's say we were successful in getting this into the school curriculum, okay? How do we make sure that the right people are teaching it to prevent any misinformation?
Islamic scholars and people who have a high knowledge in Baqee, and if not, then just basically a person who understands the whole history of the situation and the whole reality of it without there being any prejudice or bias against it.
I agree. People from our own communities, as well as people from the Baqee Organization, and like Kumail said, people who are well educated on this topic and do not have really controversial biases on it.
So when did you first learn about al-Baqee's demolition, and how did this make you feel?
I first heard of it through my dad. He told me about what happened and the destruction of it and all, and my initial reaction was surprise, because I was just thinking to myself, like, how cold-hearted these people must be to destroy a person's own gravesite. You know, like, they're not even alive anymore, and you decide to destroy it like that. That's like how much hatred do you have in you? You know, like, it's like you want to just completely get rid of them, like completely not let people know about them or even remember them.
Right, and I feel like, for example, when we go to visit some of our maybe grandparents or a person who has died in the community, we treat graves with the most respect. And over here, that is not being done for the people who deserve the most respect, the imams. So of course, I agree. Like, when I first found out about this, I also, first confusion, like you said, like how could you do this? And then also a sense of, we need to do something about this. And like you guys were saying, can bring awareness and so on. So moving on to our next question, in schools, how has this topic ever come up?
No, not really, actually. During my world history classes, we had a chapter on Islam, and it talked about like the caliphites and their history and all, but not once was the name of Baqee brought up, and I think it's really disappointing, since Baqee is also a very big part of Islamic history, especially since the ideology that the caliphites had left, the first three caliphites had left, is what got Baqee demolished in the first place. It's what created the Wahhabi ideology.
Yeah, same here. It's never been discussed. Like, they just talk about like the Sahabis, you know, and like.
And if we were, let's say we were able to get the curriculum into the textbooks, okay, who would be the right people to teach about this?
Islamic scholars, people who have a high knowledge of the history of Baqee, and or like, if we can't get those people, then just someone who understands the reality of the situation without there being any prejudice or bias.
I agree. People from our communities, like our Maulanas, and we could also have people from the Baqee Organization to come and talk about it.
Right, and this is very common in many colleges. Usually there's like a religious studies class, or you may choose to study a certain religion. If we did, let's say we teach about Islam, maybe we could have a certain chapter or like a sub-chapter dedicated to Baqee, and like you guys were saying, have the right people teach it to prevent misinformation. And this brings us to our last question. So a third of our imams are actually buried in al-Baqee, and we have huge shrines in Karbala, Mashhad, and other cities, right? But in Saudi, we do not have anything dedicated to these imams, and this is something that not many people know. Like, and 1/3 of our imams do not have a shrine. So what are some resources people can use to get to know more about al-Baqee?
I recommend going to the Baqee website called Baqee.org, and I also recommend this book by Sheikh Muhammad Al-Hili called The Baqee Cemetery. It's like a short read. It basically reaches each and every fact about Baqee and its history and how it's like today.
The Baqee website, which is located on the Baqee Instagram page, and I would also recommend them to go on alislam.org, which is a very reliable source, and it's perfect for any reads that you want to do online about Al-Baqee.
All right, thank you so much. So that brings us to an end of this discussion. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing your knowledge with everyone, and inshallah we can work together to rebuild Al-Baqee.